Hello and welcome to the Power Pod. I'm your host, Matthew Cohen, and today I'd like to welcome back onto the show one of the best friends of the show at this point, Fleur, Hassan-Nahoum. Fleur, it's great to have you back on. How are
Thank
you
you,
doing?
Matthew. You keep inviting me back, so I'll always come back. Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's only my pleasure. I think by this stage you've definitely become a fan favorite. So looking forward to a fruitful discussion. Although this time around, I think a lot of people might be surprised because normally we have you on as that Middle East political and security analyst. But today you're going to be wearing a different hat, and I just want to explain to everybody why. So the United Arab Emirates seem to be taking over the South African economy. Firstly, we saw how their national oil company ADNOC decided to acquire Shell South Africa for $1 billion US, and this hands them over 500 fuel stations across South Africa. If that wasn't enough, we saw the first Abu Dhabi bank decide to also enter South Africa's banking sector, and they seem to be pretty much filling the gap that a lot of European banks like HSBC left behind when they exited the country. But then we had probably one of the most notorious deals so far. We saw Space 42, a satellite internet service provider out of Abu Dhabi, sign a deal, a landmark deal with the South African government. And of course, this made the headlines because they beat Elon Musk's Starlink to the punch.
A South
And so what's
African-born
really interesting,
entrepreneur.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And so that really just completely took all the headlines, Fleur. But specifically why I thought it really appropriate to bring you on is because for those who might not know, you were actually one of the co-founders of, or rather a founding member of the UAE-Israel Business Council, which of course was
That's right.
established after the Abraham Accords were signed. And I also happen to note that you actually also organized the inaugural meeting of the Gulf Israel Women's Forum. Is that not right?
I'm the co-founder of both. I'm the co-founder of the UAE-Israel Business Council, which I want to correct you slightly, was created just a little before the accords were declared. We never thought in a million years that it would happen so fast, but we knew something was cooking. The Gulf Israel Women's Forum I also co-founded, but that was after the accords were signed. I was the first Israeli politician to actually fly to the UAE after the signing of the accords. And before October 7th, people have me as one thing, but before October 7th, I was very involved in Abraham Accords work and in normalization in the region. As Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, I was also a big bridge builder between the Arabs and the Jews. So that was my job before we went into a war that we never asked for on October 7th. So I do have some knowledge of Emiratis, and I do have some knowledge of the way they do business. And I mean, I want to say a few things. If you're going to have a country in the Middle
Sure.
East buying up certain things in your country, it should be the UAE. They bought $1 billion worth of equity in our main gas exploration company. So they basically bought into Israel's gas future. And that was in the first 6 months after the Abraham Accords were signed. And there were nobody in this country was concerned because they know that the Emiratis are honest business people. Now, the other thing about the Emiratis that people don't seem to know is that they have spent 15 years very deliberately de-radicalizing their country and kicking out the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the source of the terrorism around the region. You've got the extremist Shias in Iran, but in the rest of the Middle East, the Hamas are Muslim Brotherhood, the Houthis are Muslim Brotherhood, the Hezbollah are the Shias, of course, but the Muslim Brotherhood are Qatar, with all their terror sponsoring. So the UAE was the first Arab country, I would say, that took seriously the idea of looking out for the future of their young people, and by making that decision, de-radicalizing their society. They kicked out their Muslim Brotherhood. When the Arab Spring happened, they didn't waste time. They kicked them all out. And they've also changed their curriculum. The educational curriculum about 10 years before the Abraham Accords were signed was de-radicalized, all the anti-Semitism and anti-Israel language taken out of it. And so if we want to look at a model for a Gulf country of how to move forward and how to create a tolerant society, and they actually take the label of tolerance very seriously, that is the UAE. So am I concerned that they're buying up stuff in South Africa? Believe me, if it was a choice between the UAE or any other Gulf country or any other country in the region, I would say hands down, you want it to be the UAE.
Well, I know that for me personally, that puts my mind at ease quite a lot, because a lot of people, of course, have been taking note of, the ANC sort of growing alliance with a lot of these sort of Islamic radicals. And of course,
That's what I'm saying.
People who might not,
Exactly.
and a lot
That's
of
my
people
point.
who might not know about Middle East dynamics to the extent that you or I do, might think to themselves, okay, here's this Middle Eastern country. We don't know them. What do they want? So I'm really glad to hear the outlook that you've given, because I think that really will put a lot of people's minds at ease. But
just to take it a little bit outside of South Africa, what's going on in Sudan
Sure.
is a proxy war essentially between Iran, the radicals in Iran, and the UAE that's trying to help bring in leadership in Sudan that is not Islamic fundamentalist, which means they're already kind of in Africa, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing because they are the Muslims, the moderate, tolerant Muslims we want. We don't want the ones that believe in killing all of us through jihad or indoctrinating us. These are the good guys you want.
Sure. No, that's great to hear. And given this sort of perspective that you've given us, I actually want to dig a little bit deeper here. So when South Africans come into contact with these new Emirati businesses arriving on our shores, what sort of organizational culture should they be anticipating? Basically, what is the way in which Emiratis conduct business? What is the sort of way that South Africans can really get the most out of this sort of a relationship, but on that sort of human, professional to professional level?
This is an interesting question because when the Abraham Accords were announced, all these Israeli business people just showed up in the UAE thinking that they were going to be there for a week and a half and they were going to cut a check and they were going to get investments. And that's not how the Emiratis roll. The Emiratis, like good Middle Easterners, like Bedouin culture, are all about building trust. And building trust means that you're going to have a lot of dinners and you're going to have a lot of tea time, and you're going to sit and ask them about their families, and you're going to go and visit. And, that's the culture is, let's build trust where, we're not transactional to the point that we get there, we cut a check and we leave. That's not who they are. They need to build allyships. They need to build trust. And those are the people, the business people who have a long-term strategy with the Emirati economy. Those are the people that will win. It's the people that are in it for the long haul and not short-term gains.
Okay, so just to sort of break that down a little bit further, what you're saying, Fleur, is that the Emiratis are not the kind of group that will simply be sort of like how the Chinese treat South Africa. So just as a simple example,
exactly.
China, you'll see they'll basically ship out all the Temu and AliExpress products, whatever, but essentially they're just looking for a quick buck here and there. And then they have certain auto manufacturing plants, but those are mostly Chinese employees. But basically they're looking to extract from South Africa. They're not looking to build. So am I correct then in saying that essentially with the Emiratis, you've actually got people here who are willing to engage in a proper long-term, mutually beneficial kind of relationship?
Yeah, the Emiratis are very strategic. I mean, just think about where they were 50 years ago and where they are now. I mean, honestly, if you look at their beginnings, it's just incredible that what they've managed to build, the economy, they've managed to build the financial services. And they don't, it's really amazing because they had a vision. They had, I call them benevolent dictatorships. And I think that's what works in the Arab world. In the Arab world, you need a benevolent dictatorship. Democracy, unfortunately, is just a way for the Muslim Brotherhood to get in once and then never to have an election again. So they have a leader who's strategic, who's got patience, and who basically is benevolent. He wants the good of his country and his people in the long haul. So it's very, of course, every country's got their own interests. I don't want to sound naive here. They've got interests. Their interests, of course, are developing their economy, diversifying their economy, getting out of the oil-only economy, which is what all the Gulf countries really want, but few of them have managed.
Sure.
They've managed. They are managing. And that is really incredible. And that is as a result of the vision of their leaders, and it's a result of their planning and following a plan. If they're now in South Africa, it's because they have made a strategic decision to be in South Africa. And the decision could be economic, and maybe the decision is also geopolitical. Maybe they see that South Africa is getting choked by Islamic influence, and they want to stop that. That could very well be a legitimate reason to get into South Africa as well. But what they do, and what they've proven in the last 6 years with 3 years of regional war, is that when they make a strategic decision, they don't take it lightly and they don't just declare. The same with Israel. The last 3 years we've been in a regional war. If anybody would have asked me 5 years ago, could the Israeli-UAE relationship withstand a regional war of jihadi attacks on Israel and Israel's response, I would have said no way. The fact that it's still going and going strong at the moment, 12% of our exports on defense technology, they're buying it. And so what I will say is that when the Emiratis make a decision, they stick with it. They are not, how do you say? They're not, it's not something they take lightly.
They don't flip-flop.
They don't flip-flop. They don't flip-flop and they don't backtrack. And it would have been very easy for them to backtrack on the Israeli relationship with them. And they didn't.
Sure.
So I would say they're a good, positive influence on your country, on business in your country. And if they're there, they're not there simply to extract. They're there for strategic alliance and a strategic partnership. And compared to the other unsavory actors running around South Africa, this is a welcome change, I would say.
Well, that's good to hear, Fleur. And you've actually got me thinking about something else, because you mentioned the sort of strategic calculus, not just in terms of the economic side of things, but also the sort of radicalism and really where the politics, the Middle Eastern politics lie. And so I actually would like to ask you, with everything going on, you've spoken about how the UAE, of course, still has its ties with Israel. It hasn't backtracked. But from what you yourself have been able to see, just from your experiences, what exactly is the political view of the UAE at this moment in time? Do they still seem to be staunchly in Israel and America's corner, or has there maybe been a bit of fear struck into them by the Iranians?
Yesterday, the Iranians attacked them again. In fact, during this last war, they got 4 times as many rockets as Israel did. And I can tell you from my own personal perspective, I've been running into the shelter the whole of March. So it's been rough for them. It's been rough for them. They are not of the mindset that we have to give in to Iran. They're of the mindset, I believe, and I can't confirm that, I don't speak for them, but from what I have seen and the people I've spoken to, and I have a lot of deep relationships there, they want America to finish the job, because it's only destructive for the region to have the jihadi fundamentalists in charge of Iran. That's my feeling. Like I said, I don't speak for them. And to us, that's a good thing. I think we believe and they believe that we're on the same side.
Yes, of course. That's really great to hear. And I guess on that note, I just have one more question for you, Fleur, which is when it actually comes to Israel's relationship with the UAE, which of course you've been at the forefront of, could you explain how this relationship has grown over time? So, what sort of major deals have gone through? What sectors are they really most focused on?
So, like I said, they invested $1 billion into Israel's gas company, main gas company, extracting gas from the sea. They are very much buying, like I said, defense technologies. Like I said, 12% of our defense and our defense exports are huge, right? And they've only gotten bigger since the war.
Of course, yes.
Because now we've tested them. They are 12% of the market that we export to. That's wild. Those are the two main things. But I would say clean energy, green energy, agri-tech. These are all the types of, and financial services, of course, that they have. So these are all part and parcel of, exports. You've got diamonds that they export to us and all sorts of things. But ultimately, it's an economy that, we started with almost nothing. Last year, I would say $4 billion in trade between the UAE and Israel. That's huge. The year before, a year of war, almost $3 billion. So it's consistently, trade between Israel and the UAE is consistently growing every single year. Before the war, Israeli tourists were flooding the UAE, like something crazy, like 1 million tourists a year going to the UAE from Israel. And one thing I will say is that the UAE has now become the main connecting airport that Israelis use rather than Istanbul, which was for decades our main connection airport. Our main connection airport is now Dubai. And I'm very pleased about that because unfortunately, Turkey has fallen into the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood. And so the Israelis are now using Dubai, which is wonderful. And I feel, I've been there multiple times, as you can imagine. I feel very safe there. Like I said, I have relationships there. The Dubai Chamber of Commerce have an office in Tel Aviv. Adio also have offices. And so it continues, sometimes more quietly, sometimes less quietly, but the relationship and the trade relationship continues.
Right. And it's really interesting to me because there's so many parallels here because of, as you mentioned, you've got the gas interests of the UAE in Israel and of course ADNOC entering South Africa. And then as you mentioned, the financial services side of things. And we see the same with First Abu Dhabi Bank.
That's their economy.
You've got me very excited here.
Yeah. What I would say is that, Matthew, what I advise to you is to be the founder of the UAE-South Africa Business Council. That's my advice to you. I have really, when I think about the golden years in this region, my best years in terms of the work that we did was 2022, summer of 23. It was almost like a dream. And I pray to go back to that. I pray to go back to a less cynical time when we can look forward to a peaceful Middle East.
Of course. Well, Fleur, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to speak to me today on this important topic. And yeah, I just hope that everybody watching this can feel rest assured and really just, see the kind of potential that we have in the palm of our hands if we just play our cards right. But Fleur, thank you so much for your time and I appreciate the conversation.
Anytime, Matthew. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you enjoyed the chat, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more content, give the video a thumbs up, and also leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know, what do you make of this new sort of alliance that seems to be brewing? Are you as enthusiastic as Fleur and I? Looking forward to hear your thoughts. Until next time, I'm Matthew Cohen, and this is the Power Pod.